14. The Horse Dance. There was a man by the name of Bear Sings, and he was very old and wise, so Black Road asked him to help, and he did. First, he sent a crier around in the morning who told the people to camp in a circle at a certain place a little way up the tongue from where the soldiers were. They did this, and in the middle of the circle, Bear Sings and Black Road set up a sacred teepee of bison hide, and on it they painted pictures from my vision. On the west side, they painted a bow and a cup of water. On the north, white geese and the herb. On the east, the daybreak star and the pipe. On the south, the flowering stick and the nation's hoop. Also, they painted horses, elk, and bison. Then, over the door of the sacred teepee, they painted the flaming rainbow. It took them all day to do this, and it was beautiful. They told me I must not eat anything until the horse dance was over, and I had to purify myself in a sweat lodge with sage spread on the floor of it, and afterwards I had to wipe myself dry with sage. That evening, Black Road and Bear Sings told me to come to the painted teepee. We were in there alone, and nobody dared come near us to listen. They asked me if I had heard any songs in my vision, and if I had, I must teach the songs to them. So I sang to them all the songs that I had heard in my vision, and it took most of the night to teach these songs to them. While we were in there singing, we could hear low thunder rumbling all over the village outside, and we knew the thunder beings were glad and had come to help us. My father and mother had been helping too by hunting up all that we should need in the dance. The next morning they had everything ready. There were 4 black horses to represent the west, 4 white horses for the north, 4 sorrels for the east, 4 buckskins for the south. For all of these, young riders had been chosen. Also, there was a bay horse for me to ride, as in my vision. 4 of the most beautiful maidens in the village were ready to take their part, and there were 6 very old men for the grandfathers. Now it was time to paint and dress for the dance. The 4 maidens and 16 horses all faced the sacred teepee. Black Road and Bear Sings then sang a song, and all the others sang along with them like this. Father, paint the earth on me. Father, paint the earth on me. Father, paint the earth on me. A nation I will make over. A 2-legged nation I will make holy. Father, paint the earth on me. After that, the painting was done. The 4 black horse riders were painted all black with blue lightning stripes down their legs and arms, and white hail spots on their hips, and there were blue streaks of lightning on the horses' legs. The white horse riders were painted all white with red streaks of lightning on their arms and legs, and on the legs of the horses there were streaks of red lightning, and all the white riders wore plumes of white horsehair on their heads to look like geese. The riders of the sorrels of the east were painted all red with straight black lines of lightning on their limbs and across their breasts. And there was straight black lightning on the limbs and breasts of the horses too. The riders of the buckskins of the south were painted all yellow and streaked with black lightning. The horses were black from the knees down, and black lightning streaks were on their upper legs and breasts. My bay horse had bright red streaks of lightning on his limbs, and on his back a spotted eagle, outstretching, was painted where I sat. I was painted red all over with black lightning on my limbs. I wore a black mask, and across my forehead a single eagle feather. When the horses and the men were painted, they looked beautiful, but they looked fearful too. The men were naked, except for a breechcloth, but the 4 maidens wore buckskin dresses dyed scarlet, and their faces were scarlet too. Their hair was braided, and they had wreaths of sweet and cleansing sage, the sacred sage, around their heads, and from the wreath of each in front a single eagle feather hung. They were very beautiful to see. All this time I was in the sacred teepee, with the 6 grandfathers, and the 4 sacred virgins were in there too. No one outside was to see me until the dance began. Right in the middle of the teepee, the grandfathers made a circle in the ground with a little trench, and across this they painted 2 roads, the red one running north and south, the black one running east and west. On the west side of this they placed a cup of water with a little bow and arrow laid across it. And on the east they painted the daybreak star. Then to the maiden who would represent the north they gave the healing herb to carry and a white goose wing, the cleansing wind. To her of the east they gave the holy pipe. To her of the south they gave the flowering stick. And to her who would represent the west they gave the nation's hoop. Thus the 4 maidens, good and beautiful, held in their hands the life of the nation. All I carried was a red stick to represent the sacred arrow, the power of the thunder beings of the west. We were now ready to begin the dance. The 6 grandfathers began to sing, announcing the riders of the different quarters. First they sang of the black horse riders like this: "They will appear, may you behold them. They will appear, may you behold them. A horse nation will appear. A thunder being nation will appear. They will appear, behold. They will appear, behold." Then the black riders mounted their horses and stood 4 abreast, facing the place where the sun goes down. Next, the 6 grandfathers sang: "They will appear, may you behold them. A horse nation will appear, behold. A geese nation will appear, may you behold." Then the 4 white horsemen mounted and stood 4 abreast, facing the place where the white giant lives. Next, the 6 grandfathers sang: "Where the sun shines continually, they will appear. A buffalo nation, they will appear, behold. A horse nation, they will appear, may you behold." Then the red horsemen mounted and stood 4 abreast, facing the east. Next the grandfathers sang: "Where you are always facing, an elk nation will appear, may you behold. A horse nation will appear, behold." The 4 yellow riders mounted their buckskins and stood 4 abreast, facing the south. Now it was time for me to go forth from the sacred teepee, but before I went forth I sang this song to the drums of the grandfathers: "He will appear, may you behold him. An eagle for the eagle nation will appear, may you behold." While I was singing thus in the sacred teepee, I could hear my horse snorting and prancing outside. The virgins went forth 4 abreast, and I followed them, mounting my horse and standing behind them facing the west. Next the 6 grandfathers came forth and stood abreast behind my bay, and they began to sing a rapid, lively song to the drums like this: "They are dancing, they are coming to behold you. The horse nation of the west is dancing, they are coming to behold." Then they sang the same of the horses of the north and of the east and of the south. And as they sang, each troop in turn it wheeled and came and took its place behind the grandfathers, the blacks, the whites, the sorrels, and the buckskins, standing 4 abreast and facing the west. They came prancing to the lively air of the grandfather's song, and they pranced as they stood in line. And all the while my bay was rearing too and prancing to the music of the sacred song. Now, when we were all in line facing the west, I looked up into a dark cloud that was coming there, and the people all became quiet, and the horses quit prancing. And when there was silence, but for low thunder yonder, I sent a voice to the spirits of the cloud, holding forth my right hand, thus, palm outward, and I cried 4 times, "Heya hey, heya hey, heya hey, heya hey." Then the grandfathers behind me sang another sacred song from my vision, the one that goes like this: "At the center of the earth, behold a 4-legged. They have said this to me." And as they sang, a strange thing happened. My bay pricked up his ears and raised his tail and pawed the earth, neighing long and loud to where the sun goes down. And the 4 black horses raised their voices, neighing long and loud. And the whites and the sorrels and the buckskins did the same. And all the other horses in the village neighed. And even those out grazing in the valley and on the hill slopes raised their heads and neighed together. Then suddenly, as I sat there looking at the cloud, I saw my vision yonder once again. The teepee, built of cloud and sewed with lightning, the flaming rainbow door, and underneath, the 6 grandfathers sitting, and all the horses thronging in their quarters. And also, there was I myself, upon my bay horse before the teepee. I looked about me, and could see that what we then were doing was like a shadow cast upon the earth from yonder vision in the heavens. So bright it was and clear. I knew the real was yonder, and the darkened dream of it was here. And as I looked, the 6 grandfathers yonder in the cloud, and all the riders of the horses, and even I myself upon the bay horse there, all held their hands palms outward toward me. And when they did this, I had to pray, and so I cried, "Grandfathers, you behold me. Spirits of the world, you behold. What you have said to me, I am now performing. Hear me and help me." Then the vision went out, and the thundercloud was coming on with lightning on its front, and many voices in it, and the split-tailed swallows swooped above us in a swarm. The people of the village ran to fasten down their teepees, while the black horse riders sang to the drums that rolled like thunder, and this is what they sang. "I myself made them fear. Myself I wore an eagle relic. I myself made them fear. Myself a lightning power I wore. I myself made them fear. Made them fear. The power of the hail I wore. I myself made them fear. Made them fear. Behold me." And as they sang, the hail and rain were falling yonder just a little way from us, and we could see it. But the cloud stood there and flashed and thundered, and only a little sprinkle fell on us. The thunder beings were glad, and had come in a great crowd to see the dance. Now the 4 virgins held high the sacred relics that they carried, the herb and the white wing, the sacred pipe, the flowering stick, the nation's hoop, offering these to the spirits of the West. Then people who were sick or sad came to the virgins, making scarlet offerings to them, and after they had done this, they all felt better, and some were cured of sickness and began to dance for joy. Now the grandfathers beat their drums again, and the dance began. The 4 black horsemen who had stood behind the grandfathers went ahead of the virgins, riding toward the west of the circled village, and all the others followed in their order while the horses pranced and reared. When the black horse troop had reached the western side, it wheeled around and fell to the rear behind the buckskins, and the white horse band came up and led until it reached the north side of the village. Then these fell back and took the rear behind the blacks, and the sorrels led until they reached the east. Then these fell back behind the whites, and the buckskins led until they reached the south. Then they fell back and took their rear so that the blacks were leading as before toward the western quarter that was theirs. Each time the leading horse troop reached its quarter, the 6 grandfathers sang of the powers of that quarter, and there my bay faced, pricking up his ears and neighing loud, till all the other horses raised their voices neighing. When I thus faced the north, I sent a voice again and said, "Grandfather, behold me. What you gave me I have given to the people, the power of the healing herb and the cleansing wind. Thus my nation is made over. Hear and help me." And when we reached the east, and after the grandfathers had sung, I sent a voice, "Grandfather, behold me. My people, with difficulty they walk. Give them the wisdom and guide them. Hear and help me." Between each quarter, as we marched and danced, we all sang together, A horse nation all over the universe, neighing they come, prancing they come, may you behold them. When we had reached the south, and the grandfathers had sung of the power of growing, my horse faced yonder and neighed again, and all the horses raised their voices as before. And then I prayed with hand upraised, Grandfather, the flowering stick you gave me, and the nation's sacred hoop I have given to the people. Hear me, you who have the power to make grow. Guide the people that they may be blossoms on your holy tree, and make it flourish deep in Mother Earth, and make it full of leaves and singing birds. Then once more the blacks were leading, and as we marched and sang and danced toward the quarter of the west, the black hail cloud still standing yonder watching, filled with voices crying, Hey, 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 hey! They were cheering and rejoicing that my work was being done. And all the people now were happy and rejoicing, sending voices back, Hey, 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 hey! And all the horses neighed, rejoicing with the spirits in the people. 4 times we marched and danced around the circle of the village, singing as we went, the leaders changing at the 4 quarters, the 6 grandfathers singing to the power of each quarter, and to each I sent a voice. And at each quarter, as we stood, somebody who was sick or sad would come with offerings to the virgins, little scarlet bags of the chakun chasha, the red willow bark. And when the offering was made, the giver would feel better and begin to dance with joy. And on the second time around, many of the people who had horses joined the dance with them, milling round and round the 6 grandfathers and the virgins as we danced ahead. And more got on their horses, milling round us as we went, until there was a whirl of prancing horses all about us at the end, and all the others danced afoot behind us, and everybody sang what we were singing. When we reached the quarter of the west, the 4th time we stopped in a new formation, facing inward toward the sacred teepee in the center of the village. First stood the virgins, next I stood upon the bay. Then came the 6 grandfathers with 8 riders on either side of them, the sorrels and the buckskins on their right hand, the blacks and the whites upon their left. And when we stood so, the oldest of the grandfathers, he who was the spirit of the sky, cried out, Let all the people be ready. He shall send a voice 4 times, and at the last voice you shall go forth and coo the sacred teepee. And who shall coo it first shall have a new power. All the riders were eager for the charge, and even the horses seemed to understand and were rearing and trying to get away. Then I raised my hand and cried, Hey, hey, 4 times. And at the 4th, the riders all yelled, Hoka hey, and charged upon the teepee. My horse plunged inward along with all the others, but many were ahead of me, and many cooed the teepee before I did. Then the horses were all rubbed down with sacred sage and led away, and we began going into the teepee to see what might have happened there while we were dancing. The grandfathers had sprinkled fresh soil on the nation's hoop that they had made in there with red and black roads across it, and all around this little circle of the nation's hoop we saw the prints of tiny pony hoofs, as though the spirit horses had been dancing while we danced. Now Black Road, who had helped me to perform the dance, took the sacred pipe from the Virgin of the East. After filling it with chakun shasha, the bark of the red willow, he lit and offered it to the powers of the world, sending a voice thus, Grandfathers, you where the sun goes down, you of the sacred wind where the white giant lives, you where the day comes forth and the morning star, you where lives the power to grow, you of the sky and you of the earth, wings of the air and 4-leggeds of the world behold. I myself with my horse nation have done what I was to do on earth. To all of you I offer this pipe, that my people may live. Then he smoked and passed the pipe. It went all over the village until everyone had smoked at least a puff.
After the horse dance was over, it seemed that I was above the ground and did not touch it when I walked. I felt very happy, for I could see that my people were all happier. Many crowded around me and said that they or their relatives who had been feeling sick were well again, and these gave me many gifts. Even the horses seemed to be healthier and happier after the dance. The fear that was on me so long was gone, and when the thunderclouds appeared, I was always glad to see them, for they came as relatives now to visit me. Everything seemed good and beautiful now and kind. Before this, the medicine men would not talk to me, but now they would come to me to talk about my vision. From that time on, I always got up very early to see the rising of the daybreak star. People knew that I did this, and many would get up to see it with me. And when it came up, we said, "Behold the star of understanding."